What are some ways you could stay consistent when you want to change a pattern that is so internal to you? This is a question I received during a recent private event Q&A, and it is just so relatable. And you'll never guess the real reason why this even happens to begin with. If you've ever struggled with being consistent, whether that be with your habits or your routines, then you're going to want to stick around because by the end of today's episode, you're going to know the real reason that your habits aren't sticking and what to do instead. If you're new here, my name is Corrie, otherwise known as Corrie Lowe, and I'm a professional keynote speaker, facilitator, executive coach, and author who helps leaders transform overwhelm into confident action, even in times of crisis. So this challenge is so common. And reason for this is because most of what we do on a day-to-day basis is automatic. So research shows that 40 to 43% of our daily behaviors are actually driven by habit. They're not driven by conscious decision making. Think about when you drive in a car and you go to work every day. A lot of times you're not actually thinking about, hey, I need to make a right at the light up ahead. You're just kind of doing it on autopilot. And there are so many thousands of these decisions that we make every single day that we do based on habit or an autopilot. Some studies suggest that it may even be higher, with up to 2/3 of daily actions triggered by habit. So what exactly does this mean? What this means for you is that you are not inconsistent. You're trying to override patterns that are literally running on autopilot. So yeah, it's going to be very difficult to overcome that. Then from there, you have to add to this that most people struggle to sustain change. Over 88% of people fail to maintain behavior changes. So when you look at things like New Year's resolutions, as an example, only about 19% of people sustain their behavior change long term, like 2 years plus. So what this means for you is that struggling with consistency, it is the exception. It's the norm. Habit change takes so much longer than people think. And habit formation typically takes 59 to 66 days on minimum, and oftentimes 100 plus days on average with huge variability. This is a far cry from what everybody has said that it takes 21 days to form a habit. It's actually much longer than that. And add to this, only 23% of people in some studies actually reach the full habit automatically. So you're not failing. But this shows is you're quitting at a point where your brain hasn't caught up yet to the habit. And this early drop off is extremely common because a large percentage of people abandon new habits within the first month or two. So if it feels hardest at the beginning, that's not a sign to stop. That's the predictable part of this process. It's going to happen like that. So I'd love to know, do you struggle with consistency too? I know I have. Drop a comment below because there's truth in numbers. You're going to see you are not alone. So the truth is the reason that you're struggling with consistency isn't because you lack discipline. It's because you're treating behavior change like it's a one-time decision instead of an ongoing experiment. Nearly half of what we do every day is driven by habit, which are automatic patterns that have been reinforced over time. So when you try something once and it doesn't work, and then you assume that you failed, you're not failing. You just simply haven't run enough experiments yet. So in order to overcome this, you're going to have to get comfortable with experimentation. I joke all the time. I say this on podcasts. It's quoted everywhere. But as a fourth generation entrepreneur, I know this to be true. All entrepreneurs are literally professional failures. They have failed so many times that they've eventually made money doing so because every time they fail, they're learning something. It's an experiment. So how exactly do you replicate this kind of experimentation in your own habit development? So here's how you do it. First up is you got to identify the pattern. What specifically are you trying to change? So a great example for me that I've used when it came to consistency were things like my physical health. So I was trying to build habits over the last year or two where I was just an autopilot that I didn't have to think about waking up to work out. I didn't have to think about what it was I was eating. So let's just use the working out as an example for this case study. So what specifically are you trying to change? For me, I wanted to be able to consistently move my body a minimum of 30 minutes a day. From there, you run a small test. So we're not talking about a full life overhaul. You're talking about one small controlled change. So for me to start this, I was like, all right, I'm going to try to move for 30 minutes a day, whatever that looked like. So I committed that every single day in the morning before I did anything else, I would wake up, I'd roll out of bed, and I would either do Peloton or go for a walk or do something to move my body for 30 minutes. From here, while you're running this small test, you're observing what breaks. Is it things like time, energy, environment, boundaries, support. So let's take time as an example. I had a lot of difficulty waking up super early. I would try like the 5 a.m. club thing. That didn't work. When that didn't work, I pushed it up to 6. And when I was able to do it at 6 o'clock, then it started to stick. That, or maybe it's your energy. For some people, working out, you might be better off doing it in the afternoon, that you're more of an afternoon and evening person energetically. For me, I have most of my energy first thing in the morning. So repeating that pattern was helpful for me. That, or it might be your environment. I've tried everything from working out at a gym to getting in the car and going to the gym to running. I did marathoning for a while where I was just running outside in my own environment. What works best for me today through experimentation is I have a Peloton. I love Peloton. There's no excuses. It's in my basement. I wake up, I go downstairs, I get it done. I don't have to think about it. So the environment can play a big part. Also, boundaries. Are you able to protect this space that you're trying to utilize to create this habit? Are you keeping boundaries with yourself that you're staying consistent with it? If you say you're going to do it 5 times a week, are you doing it 5 times a week? Support might be an area that breaks. Is it something that you need help? There was a point in time when I was trying to figure out my routine for my physical health where we had just had a baby and I could not get that time in the morning that I needed to be able to work out because I kept getting interrupted with things with my kids. So it required me having to ask my husband and being like, hey, could you cover the morning shift so that I could get this done? So you're constantly identifying what's popping up as a roadblock and accommodating it by shifting your strategy slightly. We're shifting from not just abandoning it, like, oh, this didn't work because stuff just keeps popping up. No, we're tweaking whatever the variable it is that failed. And from this, you just repeat the process. So like I mentioned, it's taken me years of repeating this process. Now I am very locked in. I work out 5 days a week. I've determined that for me, doing like Monday, Wednesday, Friday doesn't work. I need to keep it consistent with my work schedule because I've committed to doing things for other people, including myself, during work hours. So I do it Monday through Friday. I take my days off on the weekend. I'm able to keep that very consistently. It took time for me. It took me like 2 or 3 years to get to this point. For you, it might take less time, but it's just repeating the process and trying things and failing things and seeing what sticks that you could do easily and repeatedly. Remember, consistency isn't repetition, it's refinement. So to recap what we chatted about today, it is far more common to be inconsistent than it is to be consistent in your habits and routines. And data actually supports this. To get your desired habits to stick, the only shift you really have to make is that you need to experiment. You need to identify the pattern it is that you want to be able to implement. You need to run short tests. You need to observe what's breaking down. And from there, you don't abandon it, you adjust. You adjust, you pivot, you make minor changes, and you repeat the process until it is actually autopilot and it's not something that you have to think about anymore. So hopefully you found my sharing this today helpful. If you have a follow-up question or even a question independent from this topic that you would like for me to answer, feel free to leave the comment below. You could also send me a DM on LinkedIn or even send my team an email. We just may feature your question on a future episode, so feel free to send those in. As I mentioned, I cover this question in detail with so many more strategies in my upcoming book, The 5 Overwhelm Culprits, Strategies to Save Your Sanity Without Sacrificing Your Success. It's coming out on May 12th, 2026, and it is available for pre-order in the show notes. You can also learn about more ways to work with me, whether that be one-on-one through coaching or with your team or organization via keynotes and workshops, and we share all about that in the show notes as well. So thank you so much for being here, and I can't wait to see you on the next episode. I'll see you there. Thanks for checking out The Next Step with Corrie Lowe. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, subscribe, and leave a review. Together, we'll transform overwhelm into action, and we'll keep taking the next step towards confident leadership. See you next time.